Hey friends, welcome back to Embrace the Question. My name is Steve, and these are my highly anticipated thoughts on The Chosen, Season 3, Episode 5, which is Unclean, Part 2. And I jest about the highly anticipated part. I find this very, very powerful, this conglomeration of events that we find in this episode. I hope you haven't forgotten it. If you would like to review it or check out my reactions to it, you can go over to my Patreon page. The link is right below in the video notes, and there you will find my reaction to that video if you care to check that out. This one starts out, I won't lie to you, this one totally caught me off guard. I had to make sure I was on the right episode because it starts out with Eden in labor. And I thought, oh, this is the wrong episode because I haven't seen part one of this, whatever this is. No, there isn't a part one. This is kind of a surprise right into the story. Eden is pregnant. She is in labor. She's obviously in distress. The whole episode starts out kind of as a downer, right? She loses her baby. She is totally distraught, grieved. It's not pretty. But I'm left scratching my head wondering, surely I missed something here, because did they really just throw this story in? And they did. So it's going to play in, I'm sure, to several of these up and coming episodes. So I'm sure you guys have seen them all. This is as far as I've gotten, folks. So here we go. It all starts out with Simon apologizing to Eden per his advice from Gaius, which is the funniest thing ever. And we're going to talk more and more about this little friendship that's developing between Simon and Gaius. But he starts out apologizing for whatever he, just kind of a general blanket, I'm sorry for what I did. She looks at him like he's a nut, and he is. So that didn't really work out for him. We know that there is a lot of miscommunication or uncommunicated things in that relationship. And then the story goes on, and we end up with Thaddeus and Nathaniel. Now, Thaddeus and Nathaniel, they were sent out in the 2x2s, right? They were partnered, and they happen upon the woman with the issue of blood. But I'll continue to refer to her as the woman with the issue of blood because that's how she's referred to in the scriptures. They happen upon her, and they see her lying there. They think she's wounded. They see the bloody garments around her. They think, oh my goodness, she needs help. As it turns out, she's very standoffish, as you might imagine. She's technically unclean, but they don't know that. They're talking about, we need to get her some help. She doesn't want help. We need to get her to a doctor. She doesn't want a doctor. Thaddeus makes a statement. She doesn't want this. And that's an important thing to note. In almost every miracle of healing we find, especially with Jesus concerned, Jesus always asks, what is it that you want? Because to be healed means a different way of life. And in this case, she doesn't want any more of man's treatment, okay? And that's important to note. She doesn't want any more doctors. She says she's wasted lifetimes of money on doctors that could not help her. And then she gets a hint that these are followers of Jesus, and she gets to be excited. And she makes the statement, if I could just touch his garment. And Nathaniel says, oh, that's just superstition. And I want to address that, but I'm going to do that later because that's where that particular little scene ends. And the scene changes over to Simon and Gaius working on the broken cistern. Now, I really have no idea how realistic this scene is. I don't know that you would ever see or ever have seen a Jew and a Roman working together to do such let's call it a dirty job. This would have been one of the episodes of Dirty Jobs, repairing a broken cistern. But here we are, and I actually love this scene. I love Gaius. He is a man in the system. He's just getting by, and we figure this out about Gaius. He represents many of us, I think. But in this scene, Gaius makes a statement that I find fascinating, and I wrote it down. He's speaking to Simon, and he asks, "So have you?" And Simon says, "What?" And Gaius says, "Forsaken your God of water." It sounds like your God identifies as a source of water. And the broken cisterns are a sign that you have turned your back on him. That's pretty amazing to me. That's the reason that's so amazing is because we find a whole lot of truth in that Scripture will back up. What many of us may not realize is that Simon has just referred to a verse in Jeremiah, and he names the prophet Jeremiah, but it's chapter 2 of Jeremiah, verse 13. "My people have done two evil things. They turned away from me, and they dug their own water cisterns. I am the source of living water. Those cisterns are broken and cannot hold water." So Gaius, when he asks, "So have you forsaken your God of water?" that is so awesome, because that is exactly how a Gentile mind would have thought. They had a God for everything. And he makes that mention. We've got a God for this, a God for that, and it was really pretty funny to hear him list them all off. They had a God for everything. And if you're suffering in one area, it's because you've ticked that particular God off. I'm just really digging this scene. Like I said earlier, it's kind of an unlikely friendship. But Gaius' question, "Have you forsaken your God of water?" The reason this is important is because it appears again later in the Gospels. In Jeremiah 17:13, we see, "O Lord, the hope of Israel, all who forsake you shall be put to shame. Those who turn away from you shall be written in the earth, for they have forsaken the Lord, the fountain of living water." The last part of that verse is referring to the Lord as the fountain of living water, but it's directly tied into the word cistern, the fountain. Okay, so do you remember the story of the woman who's caught in the act of adultery? What did Jesus do to her accusers? I believe he wrote their names in the earth per Jeremiah 17:13. Those who forsake the fountain of living water, those who turn away from you shall be written in the earth. That's Jeremiah 17:13. Just like Gaius just said, sounds like you have turned your back on the one who considers him the source of your water. Well, it's this scene that we think that, we're 99% sure now that Gaius is the centurion that Matthew 8 tells us has such enormous faith that he impresses Jesus. It says Jesus marvels at his faith, and he needs his servant healed. So there's a nice balance of serious and humor in this particular scene. And this whole friendship thing is really attractive to me. It kind of reminds me of Gimli and Legolas in the trilogy, right? Dwarves and elves just were never friends. Loved it. But next, we're back to the story of Jairus, and he's desperately seeking out Jesus because he knows Jesus is his only hope. His daughter's sick. That's where we left the last episode. And he's trying to find out where Jesus is found, I believe, from his notes, where he's last seen. And Yusuf kind of invades on him. And Yusuf is really turning out to be a good guy and a good friend and someone that Jesus knows. And that's where we leave that. I mean, they're trying to find Jesus. They end up over at Andrew's house. They meet Judas. Judas sends him to find Simon. Meanwhile, Jesus has returned to town, and he is at Simon's house. Simon's not there. He's digging the cistern. But Eden's there, and she's serving him and a few of the disciples that are gathered there. Jesus is using the occasion to teach about new wineskins and old wineskins and how new revelation cannot fit into old ideologies and mental frameworks. And he's just kind of blowing their minds, right? And you can still tell that, Eden is not okay, and Jesus is getting that clue as well. But soon Jairus and Yusuf show up. This is a great scene where Jairus is already putting great faith on display. He keeps repeating, "I know you," even though he's never met Jesus face to face. Think about that. I know you. And Jesus realizes this man believes. The hope that is building in the room, however, seems to be upsetting Eden even more. Perhaps she's wrestling with her own faith, or angry because Jesus was not there when she needed him. I think that is what makes this side story a bit intriguing. It's because she is displaying our own tendency to handle the horrible circumstances that come our way. And we wrestle with God in the same way that Jacob did in Genesis. The scene changes back to Simon and Gaius, and the procession to Jairus' house comes through. They join in naturally to see what's going on. Everybody would, and that's how we have the mob forming that we find in Matthew 9. The scene is set, and the woman with the issue of blood is there. She's still with Nathanael and Thaddeus, and she sees Jesus. So we know that she's about to press in and grab the hem of his garment. So let's talk about that for just a moment. Earlier in the episode, this woman makes a statement, "If I could just touch his garment," and Nathanael says, "Oh, that's just a superstition." I don't think it was a superstition. I think this woman knew the scriptures. Malachi 4:2 says, "But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in its wings. You shall go out leaping like calves from the stall." It's a prophecy about the Messiah. She believes Jesus to be the Messiah, and she believes there's healing in his wings. Now, what are the wings? Well, all rabbis wore these prayer cloths, right? We see them even today. A lot of Christians wear these even. But the rabbis wear prayer shawls that drape around their shoulders. The hem of the prayer shawl is called the kanaf, and that translates to wings. So that's the hem. That's not the little dangly tassels. Those are called tzitzi. But the hem, the edge, that's called wings. She believed, per this particular passage in Malachi 4:2, that the Messiah would appear and there would be healing in his wings. So she told herself, if I could just reach out and grab the hem. And now in this one, we see her grabbing the tzitzi, the little tassels that are hanging. I'm sure that would have been fine because it's her faith that did it, not her legalistic approach. But she reaches out and she grabs the hem of the garment according to the Gospels. And she is immediately healed. And then we have this amazing, Jesus stops. Who touched me? The apostles are pressing in and saying, Lord, how can you say who touched me? We're in a mob. He said, no, I felt power going out from me. And there she is sitting on the ground. And she realizes she felt the power too. Powerful scene. Powerful scene. So then Jesus makes his way to Jairus' house, where they also find themselves to be a little late. They find his daughter has died. There's the mourners in the bottom. And Jesus throws them out. He deals with mourners quickly because those who are mourning have already written off the miracle. They have faith in one thing, death. Okay, so he's throwing them out. There's a lesson there that we could talk about for a while. So Jesus sits down next to this little girl and brings her back to life and gives her to her parents. Again, one of the most amazing stories, events that you will find in Scripture. Jesus did this more than once, right? He did this to Lazarus. So I'm sure The Chosen is also going to address the Lazarus event. And I can't wait for that one because we've already seen Lazarus. We already met him earlier this season. So I can't wait for that one. But the episode ends with a celebration in the lake as they are bathing to make themselves clean. It was a battle that Jesus chose not to fight against the religious authorities who said, did you or did you not touch a dead body out there? And I want to remind you that with the law stated that if you came in contact with that which is unclean, then you became unclean. However, Jesus introduces a new law, a grace and truth that overrides the law, where if you come in contact with that which is unclean, you make that unclean thing clean. It brings in a complete reversal. That's the power of Jesus and the kingdom that he brought. All right, we end up the story with Eden watching the celebration in the lake, but she is still grieved. I have no idea what's going to happen in her story, but I'm sure that I'm going to find out probably in the next episode. So that is where it stops for this episode. I know that took a long time, but there's a lot of things I have to look up to do commentary on one of these. I'm a bit slow sometimes. I can't wait to actually see the next episode, episode 6, and post my reaction to that out on the Patreon page. But until then, hey, I hope you enjoyed it. Visit my blog, please, and also the Patreon page if you would like to support me there. I would encourage you to do so. But I appreciate all of you guys very, very much. Thank you for watching my video, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Peace.